everybody. Thank you so much for coming to this event. We hope that it's going to be informative and fun for you at the same time. My name is Ana Benito. I am the chair of the International Language and Cultural Studies Department here in the College of Arts and Sciences. And I would like to start just thanking the people and the groups of people who have been sponsoring this event. The event was organized by our department, but we also have sponsorship by the College of Arts and Sciences, the Dormer School of Business, the Honors Program, the Japan Foundation in Los Angeles, and the 4 companies, that you're going to hear about, when the panelists, present themselves. So this, as you might have seen here, this event is called Are You Global Ready? Okay, and it's going to be, I hope, an interesting time, for you to realize how important it is just to be aware of different cultures, be aware that other languages are spoken around the world, and how that might have a bigger impact that you think, about your future. Just to give you a couple of dates that I got out of Wikipedia this morning. Okay, the United States has an extension of 3.8 million square miles, has a population of 327 million people, and depending on which website you visit, is considered either the 3rd or the 4th largest country in the world. So that, I think, make us think that this is a big country. This is a great country. And we might tend to think that, we are the center of the universe. But when you compare the facts, right, you realize that there are officially recognized 203 countries in the world, and that there are 6,500 languages spoken in the world. So as you can see, and I hope that that helps to see you, there's more to the world than just the United States. There's more to the world, than the English language. Of course, in terms of spoken languages, the first one in the world, the most spoken one, is Mandarin. Okay. Second one is English. The third one is Hindi. The fourth one is Spanish, and the fifth one is Arabic. Okay. And you might tend to think, why learning other languages? Why, being curious and learning about other cultures? If, after all, English is the language of the business around the world. So you can all manage, or make business when you use English. I hope that our panelists will help you to understand that even if that is true, businesses, are about people and interactions with people. And when you have a knowledge of the culture that those people belong to, and you have at least certain knowledge about the language they speak, and you try to communicate in their own language, that might make a whole difference in the world about how your business, go. We thought, I can ramble about this forever because, I'm a professor, I'm used to that. But we thought that it was going to be really important for our students to meet people who experience this every day, this contact with other languages, this being able to speak or, communicate with people in other languages. And these are not, the rambling, professor in college. They are business people who recognize, the importance of knowing this and experiencing this. They are, as you know, every business person in the world, very busy people who made their businesses today to come here and tell you, about how it is important to be global aware. Okay, so without further ado, I'm gonna just give the microphone to my esteemed colleague, Dr. Nancy Virtue, who speaks, teaches French in our department, and we will go on with the event. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm mic'd up. Okay, great. So my name is Nancy Virtue. I teach French and now introductory Spanish in the Department of International Language and Culture Studies. And I will just add to what Dr. Benito said by telling you that the Association of American Colleges and Universities, the AACU, defines global learning as a critical analysis of and an engagement with complex interdependent global systems and legacies such as natural, physical, social, cultural, economic, and political, and their implications for people's lives and the Earth's sustainability. So according to the AACU, it is through global learning that students become informed, open-minded, and responsible people who are attentive to diversity across the spectrum of differences and who seek to understand how their actions affect both local and global communities and who seek to address the world's most pressing and enduring issues collaboratively and equitably. So today we've organized this panel to invite our panelists to explore more specifically what it means to be globally competent or global ready, as the title of the panel suggests, in an increasingly interconnected and global world. So I think what we'll do is start by having each of our esteemed panelists introduce themselves briefly so that you can get a sense of who they are. We will then hear a presentation by Chad Rustin, who's the Vice President of Business Development at the Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership, just to kind of frame the discussion. And then we're going to lead into the panel discussion. So if you all wouldn't mind, maybe we'll start at that end of the table, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves.
Yeah, my name is Sammy Coria. My brother is a professor here, Prof. Coria, you may know him. I work at Sweetwater Sound and just down the road from here, and I'm from the area, so that's me.
My name is Nick Dara. I'm the Director of Stakeholder Development at the Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership. I am originally from Fort Wayne. I'm a graduate of Southside High School. I joined the Marine Corps right after that and came back, and I am a two-time graduate of this university as well.
I'm Stu Kaplan. I'm the president of Makuta Techniques. Facility in the U.S. is located in Columbus, Indiana. We have facilities in Asia, in the Philippines, a couple in Indonesia, one in Hong Kong, 3 in Japan. We all make tiny, 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 tiny little plastic parts that you'll never see. How many of you have ever changed a cartridge on a laser printer? Come on, folks. You can't just sit here and eat pizza. If inside there are parts we make. The importance of this, and I'm taking a little longer here, the importance of this meeting to your education and to those of us that are looking for people like you is absolute, and that's why we're here. It is to make sure we understand who you are and that you have an appreciation for the international nature of the world. Excuse me.
Hi, I'm Heng Chang Pan. By look, you can guess that I'm from China. I'm from Asia, right? But I work here. I work for a Swiss reinsurance company here in Fort Wayne. I just moved here about half a year ago from Asia. So my title, my role here is Senior Vice President and a Global Product Actuary for the company. So by nature, sorry, I also use a little bit more time. You're fine. Yeah, by nature of our business, we are a global company because it's just more economically more feasible to be a global company to be in this line of business. Okay.
All right, I'll make up some of the introductory time. Chad Rustin, my brother does not work here, and I'm a Hoosier. Pleased to be here.
Well, so I think we can go right away to your presentation, Chad, if you would like.
I need to pull this up so I can do that, I think. Okay, I'm going to hit start. I've been given 5 to 7 minutes. I have one slide. I want you to take away one thing from this presentation. I'm going to give you a lot of data. I don't expect you to remember that. The one thing is, regardless if you think studying a foreign language or learning a foreign language is for you, just expand your horizons. It makes you a better person. It makes you a better global citizen. We talked earlier about 325,000 or 325 million people in the U.S. That's roughly 4.4% of the global population. And you can say, well, they speak English in the UK, they speak English in Australia. Yeah, that's true. But just something to think about when we talk about cultural sensitivity and that type of thing. A kid in the US is a child. A kid in Britain is a baby goat. Tell somebody you fed your kid this morning, they're going to think you have a baby goat if you live in Britain. My point. Learning cultures. Language is a gateway to culture. As you learn more about culture, you become a better human being, you're more sensitive. So no matter who you are and where you go professionally, expand your horizons. Learning a language is a good way to just be a better person. So you may find it ironic that we have an American flag here on when we're talking about foreign languages, but I have been tasked with talking a little bit about foreign direct investment. That is, companies that invest in the U.S. from overseas. So let's look at this a little bit more deeply. In 2016, which is the most recent data that are available at this time, $468 billion in investment in the U.S. Since inception, since it's been tracked, more than $3.7 trillion. And one of the things to think about in economic development is every dollar that's invested to create a job creates downstream about 1.7 jobs. So this 3.7 trillion is far greater simply from the money that's been invested in the US. Of that in 2016, I found this pretty interesting. 250 billion in equity. So it was more money that was funded into the United States. Now, there was also reinvestment from the operations that were here, but new investment, 250 billion. And approximately 25% of all global foreign direct investment is in the United States. And you can see down below, US, UK, Hong Kong, and China make up the top 4 globally. So why are we investing in the US? Why are foreign countries investing in the US? There are multiple reasons. I won't go through all of these in detail. But essentially, we have a very well-educated workforce. We have the best colleges and universities. We have much money to invest in the US as far as private equity and angel investors. So the US is a very lucrative market, especially given the consumption and the overall capitalistic society in which we live. Who are the biggest investors in the US? I found this kind of interesting. Immediately, I think everybody would say, well, China's got to be one. They're number 11. UK, Canada, and pay attention to the flags, because here in a couple little clicks, we're going to have a little flag exercise. Japan and Germany. Japan has been up there for quite some time, which Japan being an island nation of approximately 300 million, it's pretty amazing what they've been able to do. Indiana is the largest foreign direct investment state for Japan, which is pretty remarkable. And in fact, that goes all the way up to the Prime Minister and the Consul General here in Chicago. Japan continues to look for places where they can invest in Indiana, and Stu here from Columbus knows this very well because they lead all of Indiana as far as investment. I'm at 4 minutes and 32 seconds. Other US FDI trends and facts. One, when you look at what is the largest industry, it's manufacturing. Chemicals, that also includes drugs. So anything from an R&D perspective as it relates to healthcare, medication is in the chemical bucket. I talked about China, number 11. Look at that increase from 2011. They will break through within the next 5 to 7 years, without a doubt, as far as one of the largest FDI in the United States. Fastest growing, professional, scientific, and technical service. One of the things that I noticed when I was looking into foreign direct investment, services continue to be a very fast growing industry. Historically, it's always been manufacturing, as you can see here. But outside of companies wanting to bring manufacturing facilities into the United States, they're also investing heavily in services. I think I'm relatively entertaining. You guys clearly do not. So, I thought the kid thing would at least get a chuckle, but you'll remember that. Somebody is going to remember that, and it's going to save you some level of embarrassment in a pub in London. Indiana FDI. I put the top 10 in here. So, and the size of flag denotes the level of investment. So who is number one? Japan. Good. Who is number two? Yes. 3. Yes. We're going to get harder. 4. Yes. 5. Yes. Impressive. 6. Amen. 7. Ireland. Yes. Yes. Tricky. 8. Netherlands. Yes. Very good. Very good. Looks like the same flag, just, yeah. Had we had beer and pizza, the answers would be very different on these. Number 9. Italy. Yes. And number 10. Okay, so here's what we will do for fun. I'm going to leave my business card up here. Whoever finds it out, send me an email. Let me know what that flag is. Okay, so real quickly here on Northeast Indiana, I've got 2 minutes and 45 seconds left. Japan is our largest investor. We've got roughly 25 companies alone in Northeast Indiana. Roughly 50 in Northeast Indiana. When I say Northeast Indiana, that is the 11 counties in Northeast Indiana. It goes as far down as Adams County, all the way up to Steuben, over into Kosciuszko. For what we do at the partnership, we work in economic development. We focus on 3 countries, and you can see them there. Why don't we focus on more? Well, we don't have the resources or the headcount, and given the strategic influence that Japan has, we devote the majority of our times there. How do we do this? We partner with chambers, we partner with ministries, and we also partner with the local companies here. So again, takeaway, language is a gateway to culture. Consider it the gateway drug, if you will. And I'm here to tell you, and you'll learn more about this on the panel, I have been to more countries than I have states. And it's all because driving to college, my freshman year, my dad said, "Why don't you study Japanese?" This is coming from a civil engineer that barely graduated high school, had no business background at all, and that led to me being here today. So it's changed me a lot. It's made me far more sensitive, and I think that's the main takeaway, other than the flags, for you guys. Thank you. 8 minutes, 50 seconds. Right on time? Right on time. Thank you.
Well, I think that was a great way to frame the discussion, the panel discussion that we're about to have. I'll just read the 3 questions to you, and hopefully we'll get to all 3 questions, but just so you know what's coming. And they're relatively general questions because we understand that, you know, we're going to get more specific as the panelists respond. So the first question that we'd like to ask is, what does global competence mean to you, and what are the skills today's graduates need in order to be globally competent? The second question is, based on your career experience, what globally oriented skills were most helpful in succeeding professionally? And finally, in your professional opinion, what importance does learning an international language play in global competence? So let's start with the first question. I don't know how we want to proceed. Maybe we started from the end forward. Last time we'll go the other direction, starting with Chad this time. So, and then move down the line. What does global competence mean to you, and what are the skills today's graduates need in order to be globally competent?
Okay, so I gave this a little bit of thought. Number 1, get a passport. You know, I find it remarkable. The U.S. is a vast place. We have everything that we could ever need here, and there's really no reason to leave outside of being inquisitive, wanting to learn more, wanting to see other cultures. And again, language is a gateway to that. So here's what I came up with. Number one, economics. Have some level of understanding of the economics. Number two, have some level of understanding of the political makeup of a country. Not only does that help with safety, but it also makes you a little bit more intelligent as you're having conversations and you understand how things work a little bit better. And finally, what's most important from my perspective is that you have an inquisitive humility. Listen, take time to understand, and do it with the utmost humility possible. Because people from the US don't always have the best reputation globally. They see what they see on TV, and it's up to you to be a good ambassador for the United States.
For me, I think global competence to me, I think it means more choices. Because I was growing up in China, so while my parents or my parents' parents, they are thinking of which part of the city they are going to live. I'm now having the choice of which part of the globe, planet Earth, that I can live in. So to me, that's a big difference in terms of the options. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is more pleasure or better life. It just means that this is a choice that I make, that I have more options to myself. So the question of which global competence skill is most important, but I would like to twist it a little bit. I would say it's not just about the skills, it's more about the attitude. Yeah, how you view the growth, how you view your life, how you view the choices in the world. So I would take it as, I summarize several. So here, the first one I think is very important, embracing the changes. So this is a fast changing world. So I constantly heard that the only unchanged thing in the world is changing, right? So you gotta be more open. You embrace the changes. So that's the prerequisite to be more globally competent. The second, I would use the same word as Chad just used, humility. So all is saying as a intelligent humility. That means that you are not thinking that we are not going to know everything. Our culture is not the only right way, not the only culture in the world. There's a lot of different opportunities, other possibilities in the world. So more humility, and just try to open to different possibilities. There's not just right or wrong. There are a lot of grace in between. Right? And then the third one, I think, is the attitude to be lifetime learner. So because there are so many different options in the world, that you are not going to learn everything. But this is a lifetime inquisition to learn different things, to be just more humble. Yeah, that I have many things that are unknown to me. I need to learn new things. I think these are the very important attitudes for being global competent.
Well, I'll just summarize then what's been said already. And I don't mean to offend the linguistic professors here, but the most important definition of global competency has nothing to do with language and everything to do with the individual's attitude into the culture in which they're about to enter. And it's already been said, humbleness, humility. More than that, though, is the appreciation for the culture into which you're entering, and the idea that you will embrace and enjoy that culture, and you don't mind making a fool out of yourself when you enter the culture. But the culture and the appreciation for it, that's what gives you the basis for the global competency. And then giving it back to the linguistic professors, the language then becomes a tool to use that culture and enjoy that culture.
Yeah. I think that's a good place for me to pick up what I wrote down is, what is a globally competent person to me? It's somebody who can effectively navigate between cultures. This means being able to communicate, to understand the context of the culture that you're in, the history, the politics, the geography of where you're at, and how all of these things that play into our everyday life, society, norms, values, that we take for granted, they're different in other places, and that can be a great thing. I mean, if you go, whether it's Japan or the Middle East or Mexico, and you see these things that are ancient, thousands of years old, that you don't oftentimes get to see, in America. We think of things being old as 300 years or so. But when you see a 2,000-year-old tomb in Japan, or a 3,000-year-old aqueduct in Iraq, I mean, that stuff really kind of strikes you. So being able to understand and appreciate, and as you show that respect to the people that you're there, even if you don't speak the language or you don't speak it well, the displaying that you respect their culture and their history and their society really helps to establish those relationships that become valuable down the line.
Well, I consider myself very fortunate, twofold. First off, because I was raised in a bilingual home, so I was lucky enough to have that culture, two different cultures at the same time. I remember sitting in the same seats as you guys here when I was studying before IPFW, and what I take away from that I took for granted early on, was the fact that me being bilingual and being multicultural gave me an ability to access the rest of the world. And that's something right now in my professional career that I'm starting to realize. It opens a door, regardless of what profession you get into, it opens a door to the entire world. You don't have to speak hundreds of languages. As long as you speak one other language, or can get by in another language, people instantly give you credibility. For me, I'm very excited to be here today. I'm very passionate about this, and this is something that I utilize every day. So thank you guys very much for all coming, and it's very useful knowing a different language.
And I would just say, as a language professor here at Purdue Fort Wayne, we couldn't have scripted this better. You're saying all things that we believe in ardently. And I'm sure many of you are language students here. We all think of ourselves as, fairly humble, good listeners, but there's something uniquely humbling about learning another language. And you are forced to listen in a way that you're not used to listening, but to pick up on some other themes, it does open doors for us, right? And there is great pleasure and appreciation in meeting those challenges. So I really appreciate the comments you made. So let's move on to the next question, which is based on your individual career experiences, what skills were globally oriented skills were most helpful to you as you were and are moving through your professional career paths?
I'll just start by saying, not only do I speak another language, but I also am fortunate enough to speak the universal language of music, which, working at Sweetwater, I use that every day. So already I have a leg up on a global level. So for me, being able to reach out to people on a personal level, everybody understands music. That for me is something that I consider a huge benefit. So I'm glad to be able to couple that with my foreign language as well. So personally, with my Sweetwater experience, that's what it means to me.
So I really wanted to tie this question to my experience as a college student in my college career and in my early professional career. So I graduated from here with my undergrad in 2012, so not that long ago. But speaking a foreign language, in my case Spanish, really helped distinguish me from my peers during my college career. So I landed an internship with the Office of Senator Richard Lugar in Washington, D.C. There were 16 interns in that intern class. There were over 500 applicants for that. Many of them were very well connected. They had families with very famous names. I did not. My dad was a factory worker who became a teacher. He wasn't a superior court judge or anything like that. So distinguishing myself on those types of things throughout my college career, I think that really helped. And then in my early professional career, where I was much more customer facing on a regular basis, I was able to use my Spanish language skills in my first 2 jobs to help speak with Spanish customers. I mean, Spanish-speaking customers. You know, English is the language of business, a lot of people say, but I somewhat disagree with that. I think the language of business is whatever language your customer speaks. So if you're able to speak to them in their language, even if it's not that well, they will understand that, and it'll help you build the relationships that will last into the future. And now what I do is I daily meet with business leaders in Northeast Indiana, and I try and figure out what it is that matters to their businesses, what it is that they're struggling with, and a lot of times it's people. I was talking to an executive from a major orthopedics company in Kosciuszko, and he said that he travels all over the world, and he sees what other countries are doing in terms of talent development, and that we are not doing that. In terms of foreign language in particular. So he is concerned about attracting 6-figure jobs, people to come fill 6-figure jobs in Northeast Indiana because they don't have the language skills they need to compete in the global marketplace. That's real money.
So the question was, what skills contribute to global competency? All right, so everybody hold on to their pizza. How many of you have eaten sushi before? Great. You all are already globally competent. How many of you know what a mariachi band is? You are more globally competent. And I don't mean to jest about this. Here's the key. Again, one of the biggest competencies that anyone can have is the ability to eat in a variety of cultures, and that's no joke. If you can, the man who became my father-in-law, and there's some question whether I went over to Japan to learn how to make little tiny plastic parts that go inside people's bodies, or to get my wife. I got both. But what I'm telling you is, this man said to me, if you can eat and drink with someone, you can do business with that person. And that was 30 years ago. And it's paid off whether I've been doing business in Europe or in the continent, down in Australia or in Asia. The fact that you would have an appreciation already for the customs and or the cultures of the food in a country leads you into the rest of the cultures, it seems to me. Critically important.
All right, I just laugh a little bit just because when I heard that we are talking about to drink with the local people, because I pre-warn you, if you travel to China and you say you can drink with the local people, that normally means you're drinking something like 60% alcohol. And then they would toast with you, like everyone on the table will like toasting you in turn, and then you ended up drinking a whole bottle of the 60% stuff. So that I had pretty much quite a lot of experience of that, and that's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Until the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talk about a lot of globally competent, being a business needs, but I think that's also a lot of fun besides alcohol. Yeah. So I can share with you a story. Yeah. I had a Japanese colleague. Yeah. A lot of Japanese colleague here. I once sending him a meeting invitation, and he declined. And he declined using his personal iPhone. So in his personal iPhone, it's in Japanese, right? So in the decline message, that would say, decline a meeting, And because it's in Japanese, and if you know that many Japanese and Chinese, they share the characters, but with slightly different meanings. So when I read that message, it said to me, "You are fired." So it's because it means decline in Japanese, but means you're fired in Chinese. So that's that's hilarious. I shared it with the Asian team at that time, and everyone's just laughing because nobody realized that in the past. But that's the kind of fun that you have when you know the different cultures. All right, joking aside, so to be globally competent, you appreciate the culture. I think that's very important, and also I think we are in the phase that we have more information that we can understand, that we can analyze, that we can appreciate. So a lot of things, I think it is critical thinking. To when we are facing that many different cultures, that many different informations, how do we get to the key point of it? Yeah, we don't want to be like just we know what and we know how, but we want to know that why. So I think that is one very important area. Whatever culture you are going to, you are not going to learn everything in that culture, but then you want to know the critical thing. So a critical thinking would be very important to be globally competent. And another area I think is very important from my sales point of view is innovation and entrepreneurship. So that is something that you are taking risk, a calculated risk, and then you're going to try to experience, right? So I think in the more global world, it's more common than not. It is in a lot of the cases, there are a lot of the ambiguity in the business environment. So how you navigate through this ambiguity? Are you willing to take the risk? Are you going to do the right steps to take on the risk? You are not just ruthless, right? You are taking a calculated risk. I think these are the important steps that to be globally competent as well.
So I'm speaking to people at a university. When I thought about this, I tried to put myself back in 1991, 92, 93 when I was at school. And I can't, so I want to walk you through an experience, but my definition of global competence is just something to think about because people can define it a million different ways. I mean, you're only going to be globally competent if you have experience. And that doesn't mean you have to go to a different country. I had a neighbor that was Indian. I went to an Indian birthday party where they were doing, traditional birthday celebrations. That made me more globally competent. But the question I'll ask you, when you're out in society and you get that person who's in front of you that doesn't understand a language, they can't understand English, are you the person that gets frustrated and says, hey, learn English here in the US, or do you try and help that person? That, to me, defines your level of global competence. It's a simple understanding and having the empathy to put yourself in someone else's shoes. So I thought, all right, well, we got people in college here. What were the skill sets that were required for me? And I'm just a guy from Southern Indiana. Look, you get to know me, you're going to know I'm just salt of the earth. I am what you see, no playing games. When I was in college, discipline. I studied finance and I studied Japanese, and it was a grind. And I wasn't just going to study the year or the 2 years that were required for me. I was going to grind it out, and I was going to go all 4 years. Number two, really understanding yourself. So I did a study abroad program. I remember lying on a tatami mat in Nagoya, Japan, in my host family's house, crying myself to sleep, literally crying myself to sleep, because I took out a huge loan to go study abroad. How was I going to repay it? Until you've truly been lonely and you've been in a situation where you're in another culture and you need people, that was step number 2 for me. Step number 3, I immediately went and worked overseas. So I was using my Japanese to the best of my ability, but I was starting to see things that I'd never seen before from a business perspective. And then that led me to working in global marketing for about 20 years and visiting a ton of different countries. So my steps of global competence were discipline, having the ability to truly understand myself and overcome this fear of, oh, how am I going to afford this, or how am I going to get by in this situation? Number 3, then taking an active stance with the language and making it pay back, if you will. And then number 4, using it as a gateway for other cultures. But again, go back to that question. You talk about global competence, we can talk about politics, we can talk about economics, we can talk about anything. And I guarantee no matter how globally competent you are, somebody's more globally competent than you are. But how do you treat that person that doesn't know the language? Because you may just be there someday. And wow, is that a lonely, scary place to be. And the person that says, hey, I want to help you out, that empathy is pretty cool.
Wonderful comments. Thank you all so much. And I think we have plenty of time, I think, for our last question, which is, in your professional opinion, what importance does international language play in global competence? So we've obviously touched on this a little bit. Anything that you could add to a room full of potential language learners, international language learners, would be helpful at this point. So Chad, I think we'll start. How should we do it? We'll start with you again, Chad, and then move backwards.
Because I don't want to repeat anything I've said. Just grind it out. If you're studying a language, and I have this conversation with my son all the time, he's 14. And raising children is interesting, to say the least. Talk about having empathy. I am not the father that says, oh, I don't understand teenagers, they're this, because I was the same way. But he's taken Spanish, and he's doing just enough to get by, just enough to get by. And I constantly say, hey, keep it going, add another language to it. And I don't expect him to be fluent in multi-languages, but what I do expect is for him to give it some effort. Don't just do the 2 years that are required to get by. Take it a step further. It could lead to, I was talking earlier, they have the JET program in Japan. So if it's, oh, well, I'd study a language, but I don't know if I can afford it and pay. You can graduate from college and then apply and get an opportunity to go teach English in a foreign country. You know what happens there? You learn the culture, you learn the language, you get to see the world, and it leads to other things. It expands your horizons. So all I would say is, don't take language as just a check the box. Have a little fun with it, because you could be sitting here in 20 years looking at a bunch of blank faces thinking, how did I get here? You know how I got here? I got here by studying Japanese.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that's kind of different to different people as well. So to me, it's, as you can see, it's kind of a necessity for me to sit here, because my first language is Chinese. I speak Mandarin, I speak Cantonese, but I don't speak English as my first language, right? So I have to know this language to be able to sit here, to open the door to a lot of the world. But for somebody that is already an English speaker by nature, so why is still learning a different language is still that important? As we already said a lot of the times that it is something to break the ice, to bring you close to the people there, because people would work with people they like. They want to work with people that appreciate their culture, appreciate their customs. So I think learning the language is the first step to show that you are sensitive to them, you appreciate them. Yeah. So I can tell you an example, and to avoid a lot of the controversy, I don't say the name. But there's a person in the U.S. That I would guarantee that he has much more appreciation in China than in here. Yeah, reason? Well, there could be a lot of different reasons, but one of the big reasons is in one of the Chinese New Year time, his granddaughter is singing a Chinese song in the TV. And that gave him immediate affection all over the country. Yeah, that's a very powerful message that you are studying the language, you are appreciating them. Okay. And then the second part is, learning language is never just about learning the language. It's also about learning the culture, to understand the culture behind it. So I think that's more That's the powerful part. Yeah, you know why why people are doing it that way. So you may think from just first look at why are they doing that? Why are they so whatever, right? But when you know why they're doing that, then you appreciate that. Yeah, you have more empathy towards the way they're behaving. Maybe they are just doing that because that it is necessary in that culture. Right?
The language becomes a tool to open the culture for you. And I would tell you, you have to approach that same appreciation we talked with about the culture. And as Chad has said, and Hong Chung have said, you get that appreciation by using this tool. And let me back up a little bit. Folks, you've got to be willing to make an absolute fool out of yourself when you take a language and when you enter into it. And all of us up here who speak 2 languages, I think, have had that experience. But it ingratiates you to the culture in which you're entering. I'll give you a quick example. Masako and I have 2 boys. Their first language was Japanese. Once they got into elementary school, all 3 of us began speaking to them speaking to her in Japanese. Excuse me, she would speak to us in Japanese, and then we would answer her in English, and that's the way it went on as the boys entered high school. But the boys, being so much better than me, we're over in Japan, we're in a hotel, come back from a night of drinking too much, and Masako says the TV doesn't work. Call downstairs and get them to send somebody up to fix TV. She knows I don't mind making a fool out of myself. Telling someone to come up and fix the TV is very simple. I've got a 3-year-old boy standing there with me. I call downstairs and my Japanese switch went off. I lost the Japanese language. To just tell somebody to come upstairs and fix what's called the terebi. Masako says, give the phone to 3-year-old Andy. Andy he pulls himself up on the bed, gives me this, Dad, and then proceeds to tell the guy, come on up and fix TV. It doesn't matter. I have made an effort. And that's really what I want to get across to you. By making an effort to learn how to say, where's the bathroom? By making an effort to say things like, what will we go? Or thank you, or where are we going? You ingratiate yourself. You become part of the culture. And so it becomes a tool for you, and you create an opportunity for yourselves.
This question reminded me of a story that one of my professors here taught, Dr. Nazaroff. I don't know if any of you had him before, but he's a funny guy. But he tells a story about a time he was in a sauna with another Russian-speaking gentleman. They were having a very heated debate on economics, and they were doing it in Russian. And then he was telling the story about it later, and he kept talking about how he was molesting this guy in the sauna, because the direct translation from Russian to English of bothering was molesting. So he would always just say, he was like, I was not touching him. I'm just telling you, he was really upset about my economic views. But that's, you can get in trouble if you don't understand the language just as much as you can open doors. But the importance of learning an international language. I mean, we mentioned it before. Relationships are important. Business is all about relationships. You do business with people you like. You do business with people you trust and people you respect. And as a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy from Indiana, I can tell you how quickly I endear myself to a Hispanic person if I start speaking to them in Spanish. They are shocked. They don't expect that to come out of what I look like. So that helps there. It helps build that trust. It helps build that relationship going forward. And in terms of Spanish in particular, there are nearly 500 million native Spanish speakers in the world. That's 500 million potential customers for your business. A lot of emerging markets are in Spanish-speaking countries. You have opportunities there to grow. If you understand the culture and the politics and the history and the language, you're going to be able to identify those opportunities in those emerging markets much quicker. That is a valuable skill to businesses. Like I said before, I talk to business leaders every single day. The number one issue they have right now is talent. They need the skilled up talent. You're never going to travel anywhere in the world cheaper than you will while you're in college. Study abroad. I did a study abroad program in Guanajuato, Mexico. I had been studying Spanish for 12 years prior to that, and I advanced my Spanish language skills more in that 3 months that I did over a summer than I did in the entire 12 years up to that point. The immersion that you get by studying in Spanish, speaking in Spanish, writing in Spanish, ordering a beer in Spanish, right? You know, you grow personally, you grow professionally, and you make yourself more appealing to those businesses. If they have to send somebody over, if they have to spend the money to train you up, to train up an employee, or they can hire somebody who's already trained up in that skill, what are they going to do? They're going to hire you. Right now, the job market is yours for the taking. When I graduated, it was not that way. We were just after the recession. You had to distinguish yourself, and it's going to happen again. We're going to come back in that cycle where we're not going to have 3% unemployment. You're going to have to distinguish yourself from your peers, from your competition. And speaking a foreign language and understanding the culture is one of the best ways to do it.
That was great, by the way. So I thought about this a lot, and this question meant the most to me. Growing up, biculturally, I thought about this from an early age, and I took it for granted as well. You think about things more on a global level when you are fortunate to be raised in that sort of environment. I know that not everybody here is. So I'm Hispanic, I'm American. As a Hispanic, it's easy for me to understand that. As an American, I sympathize with most of you because we are charged with a pretty difficult task. The rest of the world has a negative connotation, a negative idea. There's a stigma that we are a little bit myopic, and I think this is an incredible opportunity for most people here in this room that really want to take this to be able to connect with the rest of the world. The best way to grow your business, regardless of what you do. I've had a few jobs in my life. Every time I've used a foreign language, every time. And the best way to connect with somebody is just to let them know that you're making the effort to reach them at their level. That's huge. Chad was talking about, he shared a very, heartwarming story about his time in Japan. And I empathize with that. I see people that I was in pharmaceutical sales for a little while, 7 years. People would come to me and they would be rejected by certain pharmacies because, either if they were illegal or not. On a human level, showing somebody the interest that you might have in their culture, they open up to you instantaneously. So, foreign language, I said that earlier, can open the door, but it really just instantly connects you to the core of a person. So for that reason, I think it is in the best interest of everybody here to check out a different language. Doesn't matter what language. Spanish, I speak Spanish, and there is an immediate need for that, but that's why it means so much to me.
Well, I think we're just going to take a minute to applaud you all. Thank you so much.
to pick up on just one or two things that you've all said, I just want to say that I often say to my own students that there is arguably no greater act of respect than you can show another person from another culture than to say something in their language, to meet them on their terms, to address them through their framework. It's extremely important, and I consider it really a primary gesture of respect. And another thing I just wanted to point out that struck me while you were all talking is that this is not beyond the reach of students at Purdue Fort Wayne. Some of our panelists did not grow up wealthy, did not grow up traveling the world necessarily, and they were able to do this. They were able to study a foreign language, see it through, go abroad. And there are opportunities on this campus, many, many affordable opportunities to do study abroad. There are opportunities to teach English abroad that also deepens your proficiency if you opt to do those in French and Spanish. In Japanese, in many cultures. We teach 5 languages at Purdue Fort Wayne, French, German, Spanish, Arabic, and Japanese. So if you're not currently in a foreign language, consider it, and please reach out to us in our department if you have any questions about study abroad, about learning languages, learning a second, third language. We are eager to make those opportunities available to you. So having said all that, and it's super fun, as you kind of got a sense from hearing the panelists. There's nothing more fun either. Okay, so I think we will now open the discussion up to question and answer, and Professor Combs from Arabic is going to run the Q&A.
Yeah, here I can pass this over to you. All right, because of the sake of the time, I'll just talk while I'll do this. I was asked to read a statement by ACTFL. ACTFL is the American Council of Teaching Foreign Languages, and they have a statement. Actually, they have more than just a statement about global competence. So I'm going to read it really quick. I'll be very, very short, and then I'll open the floor for Q&A. So the global competence or the terminology of global competence in terms of how ACTFL sees it is the ability to communicate with respect and cultural understanding in more than one language is an essential element of global competence. The competence is developed and demonstrated by investigating the world, recognizing and weighing perspectives, acquiring and applying disciplinary and interdisciplinary knowledge, communicating ideas, and taking action. Global competence is fundamental to the experience of learning languages, whether in classrooms, through vital connections, or via everyday experiences. Language learning contributes an important means to communicate and interact in order to participate in multicultural communities at home and around the world. This interaction develops the disposition to explore the perspective behind the products and practices of a cultural and to value such intercultural experiences. And of course they go on and on and on, but I just wanted to read to you guys this as what the American Council of Teaching Foreign Languages says about global competence. I will open the floor for Q&A, but I believe there is a mic here that I can probably use instead of this, right? They have the mics? Oh, we have the mics. Okay, never mind. All right, so for Q&A, who is our first? And I'll just reiterate the question if you guys did not hear it very well.
One thing before you leave, when you leave, please fill out the survey and give it to the people in the box. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, any questions? There has to be some questions. Should I pick on my students to ask questions that are here? There we go.
Hello. All right. So my question is basically just, can you elaborate more on the opportunities of knowing a foreign language but staying here? Because my other interests kind of really make me want to stay here, but I would definitely love to use my future foreign language abilities to the fullest extent while staying here.
Chad, that's yours.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. By the way, number 10 was Luxembourg. Just looking at the companies alone that we have here in Northeast Indiana, I think there is definitely opportunities for people that want to learn a foreign language and then have the potential to work for a company, that is headquartered in that country. I think one of the main things, and I've still got my card up here, and Nick works at the partnership as well. One of the things so I spent 22 years in medical device sales and marketing. I had no idea about economic development organizations, but what the partnership does here in Northeast Indiana, in its ability to connect individuals with other individuals that either have similar interests or may want to pursue certain careers, is pretty incredible. There are, like I say, there are a ton of foreign companies here. We can put you in contact with them, and just beginning to build a network, if you will, of knowing someone who will know someone else. It will definitely open doors for you.
I think I'll jump on top of that. Sorry. Couple of data points. There are 7,076 exporters in the state of Indiana. $37.8 billion in exports last year from the state of Indiana. We're the 9th highest exporter in the country, highest exporting state in the country. And there are 16,000 jobs in Allen County alone that are entirely dependent on exports. So you can definitely use your foreign language skills and your international competency here, today, right now. Our companies are starving for your talent. So you don't have to go and live in Japan and work in Japan for 5 years. You can do that right here in Northeast Indiana and be extremely valuable to our existing companies and our growing companies here.
I'm going to be very selfish. Young man, what is your name? Jalen. Jalen? Jalen, what language are you studying, or do you study?
I study Japanese with Kike-sensei.
Yay, thank you, Rico. So I'm going to be very selfish. I know you want to stay here in Allen County. I'd like to tell you that there's more of Indiana down south, and that someone with language skills and cultural appreciation, I'd sure want to talk to you. Is and again, I'm not being facetious. You need to understand those stats tell you that you have an opportunity right here, let alone I'm from down south, and I'd sure like to talk to you. Does that answer your question? Oh, yeah, very much. Great.
I just want to add as well, sitting here listening to Nick and Chad speak about this has opened my eyes, without a doubt. I'm from here, and I'm from Warsaw, Indiana, actually. And I thought if I wasn't going to get into the orthopedic business, then I would be ending up in some factory or something like that. But the truth is, we are all fortunate to live in this area. From a global level, I work at Sweetwater. I talk to people from all over the world daily, right here in Fort Wayne. You don't have to leave. You don't have to leave. That's it. I mean, you can get connected very easily, and we're fortunate.
Great question.
Yeah.
And I just because I know you study Japanese, and your sensei can tell you this, but we're having a Japanese summit in April. Just ask her a little bit about that, because we have companies from all over Japan that are going to be there. It's not necessarily a talent connection event, but if you just happen to stop by and meet a couple people, I think that'd be a pretty good idea. And then you don't have to go to Columbus.
This question is kind of directed towards Mr. Kaplan specifically. I actually grew up pretty close to where Makuta is, and I was wondering how you plan on having your business influence those communities where it's near to be more globally conscious.
Thank you. Where are you from?
Shelbyville.
We'll talk later. I'll give you this secret handshake. It's critical that we are involved in the community. And again, quite selfishly, our feeder system depends on being involved in the school systems. There are 5 county high schools, one big one in Shelbyville itself, relatively big one. I will tell you, first of all, we run our factory 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The phrase in our business is lights out. Does anybody have any idea what that means? Anybody? We run it lights out. That means we run robotically. So we have people in our place from 7 in the morning till 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then everybody leaves, and if I'm there, I'm usually the last one out, and there are all these robots doing this and waving at me, and I walk out and set the alarm, and the next morning, it's like Christmas every morning. There are parts beautifully packed, ready to be shipped. The reason I mention that to you, and it's a great question for me personally, is in order, first of all, to have a competent, constant flow of folks that are talented and looking to do what we do, we have sponsored, for example, robotics clubs. You want to see me have a heart attack? I'm 72 years old. I've got 52 third graders walking through our factory, and I'm scared to death. But on the other hand, what does that do when we bring them in? It exposes them to who and what Makuta is. Then going back to the question, being involved in the community in an international way. The sister city of Shelbyville is Shizuoka. It's critically important that we are involved in the community as a American-Japanese-based company. So to answer the question, one is, from, again, a selfish point of view, we absolutely have to expose people to what we do at Makuta and change the way, and here's another part of this, change the way young people look at manufacturing. It ain't their folks' manufacturing experience anymore. More importantly, what we've talked about here is the culture and the language, getting young people to understand how important the culture and language is in Shelbyville. Thank you for that question. And I'd like to meet you afterwards, please.
Other questions? My students, you don't have any questions? Nothing? All right, well, thank you very much. I mean, honestly, this is, I couldn't have asked for a better panel discussion on this topic than the panels that we have here. You guys had said everything that we all as language educators been thinking about, and we discuss in our own meetings, and we also try to relay that information to our students as well as other faculty members in the university as much as we can, and you guys just said the perfect words in this discussion panel. I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I thank you, our panelists, for coming all the way here on this very cold day, in my opinion, very cold day. I'm a desert girl. And I would like to thank, I don't know where Susie is. She's behind, there's many people that were working behind the scenes to get this event put together and running. So thank you, Susie. She is our ILCS administrative assistant, and as well as many other faculty members in our department. And our chair, Yuriko, I don't know where you are, here as well. And our moderator, Nancy, Dr. Virtue. So thank you very much.